So today I have a special guest. I have Bande Dessinée artist Stefano Carloni, whose comic Barbe Rouge, if I'm pronouncing that even close to correct.
Yeah, it's correct.
Also known as Redbeard. I have him here today. And real quick, before we get into some of the specific questions, I wanted you to give my audience kind of an idea of the like European or French comic scene and how it is versus like the American comic scene.
Yeah, it's true that there are two universes which are really different. And I have to say, although I am Italian, I'm a bit out of the Italian market. I know much better the French one, also because I travel very often for work, for festivals or dedicated session in bookstores in French and Belgium mostly. And I can say that the bande dessinée, the name they call comics in French, in those part is really a real cultural product of the highest level. So just look at the book, which is hardcover, is a big format, more than an A4, and as if it were a paperback or a special edition, instead is the norm. So once they make a really special edition, they are even bigger and even a lot more. A lot less cheaper. And the bookshops are really huge, and you can find whatever you want really, and the market is really big. I can say that normally, if I remember well, there's about 5,000 new books every year, considering also the manga, not only the French one, and 85 millions of books sold every year. So it's really enormous. And I want to give an example to show how important comics are in France and in Belgium. In Belgium, for example, the new money checks printed by the state have as a background a graphic with the most famous comic characters. So it's something really in the roots of the country.
That's really cool to hear. Yeah, you would never see like Superman on a dollar bill in America. So
it's a lot more with presidents and something like that.
Yeah, not the same. So that's really cool. And again, when I went to Paris, I went to several comic book stores, and the area I was in had, I think it was like 6 or 7 on one block, just crisscrossing from each other. And I couldn't believe how much content you guys had. And what was also cool is shopping the French comic store that just sold French comics. I love that it's like literature. Like you can buy Western or sci-fi, fantasy, crime fiction, spy fiction, like everything. There's no genre that's not covered. So it's very cool to see.
Yeah.
And what was your introduction to, I guess you said the bande dessinée, the French scene is one you're more familiar with. What was your introduction to that scene?
I have always loved to draw since I was a child. When I had fever, I was happy to skip school so I could stay home and draw. So it's something really natural for me, and it was something that gives me the way to be calm and concentrated every day. But in childhood, I didn't read comics yet. I have to say, I bought them just to look at the drawings, and try to copy. I didn't care a lot about the story. The interest in really reading comics came later, during the high school, I think. And I used to read especially Italian comics like Dylan Dog, Tex, or Diabolic. They are comics who are very known in Italy. And as I read them, I didn't stop anyway to copy the drawings to make some exercise. But instead, the interest into French comics came really a lot later.
Okay. Was it more like teenage or like older 20s, or kind of when you got introduced to them? What was the first one that really caught your eye or got you excited about bande dessinée?
I think that one of the most the biggest known comics in French that really I was fall in love was Black Sad. I don't know if you know
Very
this
familiar.
title.
Yeah.
It's something really unbelievable. The artist is really talented. The drawing, the colors, and the story really got me. So it was really like, wow. In the future, I'd like to do something like this style,
The style of story or the style of the art that he's done?
I think both.
Okay.
I really like the way to tell a story in the French market. So the narrative taste is really something special that I feel comfortable with my style of telling a story.
Okay. And for the style that they tell their story, is there anything specific with that that's really different from what we see in America? Like I noticed there was a lot more like series that like are just more mini series that end, whereas here they kind of go on forever.
It
So,
depends. It
okay.
depends really on the kind of publisher, on the kind of collection. There are some series which are really, really long, like 40 numbers. There are some mini series. It depends, especially on sales, we have to say, because if something works good, they want to go on, of course. But it depends. Usually, is a mini series. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, because I think I think it was the one that I grabbed. It was Durango, the Western.
Yeah.
I think that one they said it was around for like almost 40 years or something.
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay, because yeah, I had it somewhere over here, but I can't remember where I put it.
It's one of the classics, so the sales are really good, and there's a lot of readers who follow the series. So in this case, the publisher wants to go on.
Yeah. And then at what point did you decide you wanted to get into this professionally and take your drawing into that field?
I think that during the high school, I had already chosen my way, or however, I had decided that I will try with all my might. So I enrolled in a comic school in Italy, which allowed me especially to go deeper with all the important issues like the study of anatomy or perspective, or even the history of comics, international comics, so all the markets, Italian, American, French. And the program also covered the whole technical part about inking with different tools like brushes, nibs, color theory, and coloring techniques. And during the third year, I discovered the French Bande Dessinée. As I said, it was really love at first sight. The way of telling the story, and especially composing a page with a lot of panels, different size, and a lot of taste about details. The narrative taste matched perfectly with my personal taste of telling a story. So the next goal would have been to propose my work, my project to this market, but it didn't happen immediately, because for a couple of years after finished the school, I've only published with some Italian publishers in Italy, but they are really small, not really important publishers. When I decided to make the jump more seriously, I proposed a personal project to the French publisher at the Festival of Angoulême, which is one of the most important and most known in France. And they liked the style of my drawings, and I got the first contract, and it was on 2014. Yeah.
Okay. And was that was a different comic than Redbeard, wasn't it? Or was it this one? The one that you got the contract
No, it
for?
wasn't. It wasn't Redbeard. No, I drew something like nine books before going into Redbeard. Yes.
Okay.
The first
Wow.
one was about vintage racing cars.
Oh, interesting. That's cool.
Totally different. Totally
Yeah,
different.
completely different. How do you feel about drawing like vehicles versus people? Because your ability to draw like the ships and the people and the islands, I was really impressed, because some artists are better at one or the other, but you were really talented at both.
I try to do my best for both, for people and boats. Of course, people are a bit easier to draw than boats and ships, I have to say, yes.
Yeah.
But what I say is something really special and a bit strange sometimes to understand. The most difficult part to draw a ship or a boat is not the technical part, because once you have the confidence with the structure, you can not really draw it easily, but you can arrive to draw it quite good. But to give them a real life, so you have to feel the weight on the water. You have to feel the strength of the wind, which pushes the sails. You have to do something which is believable, and that's the hardest thing in drawing ships, actually.
Interesting. That's really
Yeah.
interesting. And so do you ever find yourself going like near a coast or near an area that you're going to draw to get a better idea of how to create that sense of motion?
I
Like, do you have
try
any-
to have the more references I can find, especially on internet. Sometimes I help me a bit with the 3D models to turn the model and see it's about from the perspective I need. But of course, it's a bit a simple way, but then you have to draw all the details. So it's just a step of the work.
Interesting. Yeah, because I know I wrote a scene in one of my books where it was a motorcycle chase. So I was
Yeah.
going on YouTube and watching like motorcycle racing and GoPro motorcycle videos to try and understand like what it would feel like. So I'm guessing, is that the reason why you have that big model ship behind you?
This is a special one because it belonged to my grandfather, who was
Oh,
dead when I was just a child. I have very few souvenirs about it, but when I was a child, I was fell in love with this, and now I happy to conserve it in my studio.
yeah, it goes well with the Barbe Rouge comic down there too. And so is
Yeah,
that
I
one of the
have to
special
say
editions?
I used it. I used it for the Spanish galleon because actually is a real model of a Spanish galleon, which was perfect for the era I needed. So I used a lot of times to draw. Yeah, as a
Yeah,
reference.
yeah, because I finished the first volume, and yeah, there is a Spanish galleon, so super cool.
Exactly, exactly. It's
And
here, the real one.
that's funny. I love that. Did you so is that Barbie Rouge on your shelf? Is that a special edition? Because I know they had, when I went to the store, they had like a black and white special edition of comics and
Yeah,
then like a regular. Okay. Super
yeah. I
cool.
have here with me. If you want, I can show you.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to see some of it.
As you can see, it's really, really big.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of special contents like, I don't know, illustration, or there's a long interview where I explain how I project a page, how I compose a page, and sometimes there are illustration
Wow.
spread on
That's
double
cool.
page. Yeah.
That's
And I have
really
to
cool.
say that the quality of the print is really something great. And there are long interview.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's so cool.
And then there's all the, for example, here where you can see the photos
Uh-huh.
of the model
Yeah.
as a reference. And then there's all the book in black and white with some new illustrations. All the book in black and white.
That's cool. I love the black and
But
white.
this is really an edition for serious collectors because it's not cheap at all.
Yeah.
And the number of books is really limited, like 200. So it's something really special for big collectors.
Oh wow! I wish I had talked to you before I left because I have the Pillars of the Earth, and
Yeah.
they had the special one. I got
Okay.
I got the color because the color was cool, but I was really tempted to get the special one. And then also there was another comic that had a special edition that was really cool, and I didn't because I was like, maybe later. But knowing that, I'm like, oh man, I missed out. But I think the ones I got, they're like maybe 10 to 15 in US dollars. And then the special editions were like 40 to 50 in
Yeah,
US dollars. So it's a big jump, but that's cool. It has so much extra content. So
true.
because I was impressed, and I'll show this here, is like even just the regular version, you're getting this full like map. And you said you had drawn this on pen and paper?
Yeah, I do mostly my work on paper. So even colors, except for the pages, because the black and white is done original and made with China ink on paper. The colors of covers and illustration are handmade. But on pages, I prefer to keep the colors digital because
Yeah.
it's something really quicker and more comfortable to control the color inside the book, which is always a delicate thing. So, but the cover is painted on paper.
Oh, wow. So then you do the black and white, you do the pencils and you do the color.
Yeah, exactly. I do
Is that-
both,
is
except
that-
the story.
Is that common for French comics to have an artist do both, or do they sometimes have a colorist?
No, actually, it's more common that an artist do black and white, and there's a colorist. But this
Okay.
is a question which I care a lot because I always think to the draw already with colors. So when I do the black and white, I imagine in my mind already the atmosphere with colors. And sometimes in the past, it happened that the colorist who worked with me had totally another view, which wasn't really bad at all, of course, but it was different, So I wanted to create a universe with my style, which was complete with colors to create some coherence between pages and illustrations, so something that it was really me totally in the style, in the result.
Yeah, you can see that with the way the colors are. Because one thing I noticed was that it was cool how, let's say you have a scene when they're on the island and it's bright, you can feel the sand, you just feel like you're on an island. And then, you move on to, let's say, they're at sea and it's like the tone shifts to that blue and it's just different. It was really, really cool. And also the scenes that happened at night, this is a scene, sneak over there at night. And I felt like, the way the lanterns shine, like your coloring is really impressive. So that's
Thank
really
you
cool
very
that you're
much.
able to do both. Yeah.
For the colors, I used to take references from movies because the atmospheres are great sometimes, and they match perfect with the kind of light and shadows I want to create, to give in the scene. So in the cinema, I can find whatever I want in terms of lights and colors.
And then when you're looking for scenes in movies, are you more searching like, okay, I need a scene at night on a beach, or are you specifically looking for the genre of movie as well, or just the type of scene?
It depends. It depends. Sometimes you are lucky and you find the perfect scene with the perfect lights, or some other times you find just something which is good to draw, but with complete different colors, and then you match it with another references. So it really depends on the scene you have to draw.
Okay. And then for this one, specifically for Barbie Rouge, as far as I've been told, it's a very, very famous Franco-Belgian comic strip. How familiar were you with this character before you had been asked to be a part of this project?
Yes, Redbeard is a truly popular character in France and Belgium too. As it could be, I don't know, Spider-Man or Batman in the US, for example, especially in the past when the series was really at its peak. However, it's not at all known in Italy, for example. So I discovered the existence of this character when I was just a child, not with the comics, but on TV, because they broadcast a cartoon based on the comic, and I couldn't know it was from the comic, of course. and I could imagine that one day I would draw it, of course. And I could study a bit the history of this comic when I approached to this market, but before I could really draw the books, I had to study a lot. And I read the whole first part to take enough confidence with story and the characters. And I just love pirates since I was a child, always loved pirates. But it wasn't enough to be inside the project. So we must consider first that the style of the original series was very classic, of course, because it was so popular in the 60s. So you can imagine the style at that time.
Yeah.
And they asked me to modernize the style, of course. But the real challenge was to be able to preserve a bit of the classic spirit, because the most of people who loved it when they were young and they were really attached to that style. Now we wanted to give it a more cinematic look, which fit better nowadays, of course, to get to younger readers too. But we wanted to keep the old public to the new series. So it was really difficult to find the midway, the right balance.
Okay. And then, so that being said, as far as, having that type of responsibility, was there any specific illustrations in this volume that you felt, in the first volume, that you felt like you were really proud of, that you felt brought, the spirit of the original Redbeard, but also into the modern age?
Oh well, yes and no. It's been a while since I drew the first volume, because now I'm currently drawing the fourth one, and there are so many things in the first one that I would completely redo differently now. But it's normal, it's logical. This is a artist life, so it works like that always.
Is
But
there
if
one
I
from the new volume that you think is a better representation? Whatever you think is your best representation, I'm happy to jump forward. So if
I
you
don't
think
know. I
this,
think that Barbe Rouge is the character among the others that I feel more comfortable to draw since the beginning. It was really natural for me. But if I have to choose what I like best, I think probably I'd say for the first volume, for example, the last page with the scene of the ships moving away from us at night. And I love drawing and coloring, especially the night scenes.
okay, I'm
And
pulling
I
that one up right
especially
now.
like to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
gorgeous.
especially like to ink the sea, the foam and the waves. So I have to say that's the thing I'm happiest with the result, especially the inking part of the sea. Yes.
Okay, that's really cool. Yeah, the fact that you do all three stages, the pencils, the inks, and the colors, it's impressive. And you can tell it all comes from you in a way. Like, now that you've said that, it makes sense, because when I look at it, none of the coloring or inking muddies the pencil work. And I've seen that sometimes in comics where a different colorist or inker could make it kind of hard to see what's happening. But it was very easy to read. Like, as I'm reading this, it was so easy to go from panel to panel. And I really felt like I was being sucked in and watching a movie. And I feel like that's what a good, comic or bande dessinée does, is you get sucked in and you don't even realize you're reading it, that your eyes are moving. It's just like,
Thank you very
it feels
much.
like it's happening. And
This
I
is
felt
really
like
a
you
big
did
compliment for me.
that. Well, that's good to hear, because I was reading it, and I remember thinking like, okay, I'm gonna start it, and then I gotta finish it later. I read the whole thing. I just read the whole thing in one sitting because I couldn't stop, and then I immediately bought the next one, and so I'm gonna read that one next. So
This is the
yeah.
magic of a good story.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
I have to say that the story is really good. So I've just done my part, but we have to say a lot about the writer, because the story is really great. So uh, it's normal that once you start reading, you want to read more, and you want to come to the final part. Yeah.
how for his scripts, because I looked up, I believe, yeah, Crayon. I'm
Crime.
not
What?
okay. I know I'm gonna say that wrong, but it sounds like he has quite a prolific career before this as well. So how was it working with him, seeing his story and then you turning that, bringing it to life in illustration?
I think that I make a small introduction to the collaboration with a writer, because it's something really different depending on the writer you work with. For me, the ideal writer is the right balance. He has to describe me a bit the scene, and he can suggest, of course, several details, but then he must also give me the right freedom. The ideal relationship is one in which there's a continuous exchange and confrontation between me and the writer. This allows you to always get something that suits you both without ever forcing the choices. And I have to say that I'm really lucky, because with Jean-Charles, the writer of Barbe Rouge, I'm working with, is exactly like that. So I'm happy and extremely proud of this collaboration. And sometimes it may happen that I suggest him little changes about the story. Sometimes he agrees, other time less. The important is we always choose together, and especially respect the work of the other one without go over it. That's really the key for the perfect collaboration. And there are writers sometimes quite jealous of their own script and not really tolerant to suggestion or to modify something. Anyway, normally he writes a story and he sends me a subject in a couple of pages, just to know where the story takes place and the most of what happens in the story with characters. Then he writes a whole script, and it's really important that I have the whole script of a book, because often you get just a group of pages, you work on that group, and then you receive the next one, and it's always really difficult to work like that, because you don't know the story, you don't know really what's going to happen then. So it's really important to have a global vision of the story. And when I receive the script, I'm used to do very little sketches of all the pages on a Moleskine, on a small sketching book.
Mhm.
This allows me to have the vision of the complete story, and the draw is really quick down, so it's just a fast sketch. I think that I'm the only who can understand what's going on these sketches, because they are really quick.
Yeah.
But it's really important. It's the first step, and I have to say probably it's the most important to go over. Then I work on group of pages. So depending on the story, on the sequences, I'm used to draw like 10 or 15 storyboards, which aren't yet a pencil. So it's a midway. You can understand what's going on. The characters are already quite good drawn, and it's precious for showing to my writer and my editor to go with pencils. But I have to say, with time, now we have a lot of confidence between us, so I don't show no more pencils. Once they see the storyboards, which are more sketches, then I direct send them the inks, because the correction they ask are really light ones or small ones, so I can manage it without problems.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. That's really smart to do those little sketches early, because I know there's artists I've worked with who they would do that. They would send like maybe a few sketches ahead of time, and it made it so much easier, because then you get all that stuff figured out before you have this finalized illustration, and it's like a huge headache to try and adjust it. So that makes perfect sense. And I did make a comic book where someone had done them. Over here they call it thumbnails, because it's like a little image.
Yeah, exactly.
And so they had done all those, and it was awesome, because then I could get an idea. And I can only draw like scribbles, so I could understand what the scribbles were. So I don't have your
Anyway,
talent.
I have to say also that the deadlines are completely different between US market and French market. So in American comics, you have to draw a whole story of 22 pages in a month, for example.
is a lot.
In France, we have a wall here to do a book. So there's really a lot more time to make corrections and to redraw something. That's true also that pages are completely different because there's a lot more panels into a page, and the panels are really, really full of details with a lot more distant shots with camera. So there aren't usually like first plan of characters as we see somewhere else. So we have really to draw a lot of things into a page. That's true.
That's good. I actually like that, and that's something I've been saying I wish would happen over here is, the format that you guys have with these like slim hardbacks that are at a very fair price. I mean, this is, double to a little bit more than double the size of American comic, but the price isn't that much more. The quality of the book is much better. You can actually put it on a shelf. Little paper comics you can't. And I like that they're not monthly, because when I read this first volume, there's a really, even though it's, there's more after it, it's a really full story. And I don't feel like it's just a tiny piece. Like, this is such a good chunk of story that I wouldn't mind if I bought this and waited, 6, 7, 8 months, a year. I wouldn't mind waiting that long for another volume because I got such a good story in that first book. So
even if I have to say that sometimes there are some long series and the episodes aren't really full, like you said. Sometimes it's hard to wait for the next one. But in this case, we try to make full episodes. So even if the story is really long, so you have a red line who connects all the things that happen. Any episodes is full, so you can read it complete and then wait a while here to the next one.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought the format was great, and it was cool. The only difficult part was at the store, there's so many hardbacks on the wall. I couldn't really and I was brand new, so I wanted to look at every single one. So that was the only downside. So if you're going to Paris and you want to see the comic book stores, just know that it's a lot of hardbacks, but it's cool.
You need a compass for orienteering.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
And what I was... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, sometimes there are really huge bookshops and bookstores, and it's really hard to find what you search, and it's really hard to stay in front of the store, because as I told you, with 5,000 new books every year, it's really difficult to stay visible to the public in the shelves, because a lot of books come over and you get lost in a minute.
Yeah, I can see that. And I do want to give you one more compliment since you're talking about books on a shelf. I went through the pirate section. So the store had probably like, 20, 30 pirate books. I only bought one, and this was the one that caught my eye and I bought. So, and I knew nothing about it. I had no idea about the history, anything. And it caught my eye immediately. And the internal art, I couldn't read the story, but I knew exactly like the type of story, and so I was sold.
And you didn't know the series, the original series, I suppose.
I knew nothing.
Consider the impact that this cover had for the ancient public. This character was like an hero, and now after more than 16 years of absence, because the series was closed, they found in the bookstore their hero with the hang with the rope. So it's just terrific for them, and that was the strategy actually for giving them the interest, the curiosity to discover what happened.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because you see that cover of him, with the noose, and it's like, wow, like, wait a minute, I got to know what happens. So yeah, that's really smart. And I love even the back illustration. Like,
This was
So
this was an homage to the whole back cover with the illustration of Redbeard and the flag. So I redraw in a more modern way.
yeah, it looks great. And yeah, again, that was
Thank
I
you.
saw that one, and then I think there was a Blackbeard one I saw that looked really cool, and I was debating between those two. So I went with Redbeard, and I didn't know Barbe Rouge was Redbeard because I don't know French, but now I know. So
Yeah.
I'm working on learning French because after going to that comic store, I was like, I gotta learn to read French. It was just, yeah,
You know, when I started to work for France, I didn't know a word in French, so it was
really,
really terrific for me because not terrific, sorry. It was really an hell because the very first festival I've done, there was all the staff of the publisher on a round table, and they were of course talking all in French, and
wow,
I was like, what happened? Uh, and I said myself, this is not me. In Italy, I'm used to socialize, to talk a lot with people because I'm curious. I like to talk. So something in my mind said me, you have to learn French if you want really go into the market and live it. So finally, I had to I had to learn.
yeah, that's a fun way to learn, I guess, as far as it being, these cool illustrations and comic books, and hopefully I'll get there. I'm working on it. So yeah. And then are there any future like styles of stories or characters? I know you said you really enjoyed Black Sad. Does that mean you want to do kind of like a character like detective-y kind of story, or what type of story would you ever want to draw in the future?
In general, I really like to draw something which is halfway between historical and adventure. I'm not
Mm,
crazy about the totally historical genre. I already draw it for some books in French, but sometimes it risks becoming a bit boring. You know, of course, it depends on what era or historical event we are telling about. That's why I largely prefer to take as a basis historical time really existed, but then to inventing a story above it with unknown characters that maybe could have existed at that time. This allows me to go a lot more for the adventure. But anyway, I love to draw past time and give lives to worlds that are no longer there. My favorite time of all maybe is the Middle Ages, but
yeah.
I'm not really so selective. So I also like sci-fi, for example, especially post-apocalyptic. And as for characters in general, I really like to draw charming female characters, sometimes a bit erotic, or I love the opposite. So ugly, birded, dirty made characters. That's why really the universe of pirates is perfect and great to draw.
Yeah, you definitely can do that because I think there's that maid character in the first volume I read of Redbeard. So yeah, that's cool. I love that. And then are there any, I see your shelf's pretty full there. Are there any comics that you're currently reading that you're really excited about that get your imagination going?
I have still a lot of books to read. So for the moment, just to keep the dust on the shelves. No, I haven't read manga or comics in years. I have little time to read because the work takes me most of my time. So what remains, I prefer to read only French bande dessinée to keep up with the times and stay updated on new releases and in the market and know the most popular trends. So currently, I'm reading Go West Young Men, which is the first volume of a Western series, which is another genre that I really like to draw. And each volume is a collective, so where about 10, 12 artists draw a small story each one. And the script is done by the same writer for all the stories. And the third volume deals with the outlaws so dirty, again, violent and merciless stories, and I really love it. And by the way, I had the chance to collaborate on it because I made a short story on the number 3. So I'm reading it from the beginning to please my eyes, because there are drawings of some talented colleagues that some of them are really friends of mine. So it's a sort of pleasure, a double pleasure to read a good story with some colleagues and mine little story inside too.
Yeah. I was surprised also, you mentioned Westerns. I was surprised how many Westerns there were at the store in French comics. It was probably the biggest like area of the store that was just French comics was Westerns.
For example, Blueberry. I don't know if
Yes.
you. Yeah, it's one of the most known Western comics in French. And it's really a monument of comics. So it's a kind of story that really people loves a lot and loves to read. Yeah.
Was the
Totally.
writer of Blueberry also the same person who originally wrote
Yeah,
Redbeard?
exactly.
Okay, that's what I
Exactly.
thought because I was looking
Jean-Michel
him up.
Charlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That guy
And
is impressive.
I didn't have the chance to know him because I'm too young for it. But I met his son, and he was really happy about our take on Redbeard, and he find that we really kept the spirit of the classic series alive. So it's really a good compliment, and it's really important for me to know that he thinks it.
Yeah, it was cool like getting to know as I'm a first time reader, getting to know the character of Redbeard, and it's like it starts out with him kind of being almost retired, like he's fat and happy, has money, but he's like, I just want to get back on the boat. Like I want to sail, I want to go find stuff. And that was cool. It's cool because oftentimes a lot of stories start from the beginning of like how this person becomes the character. And in this one, it's like he is the legend, but now he wants to get back at it. And that was cool. That was a really
Yeah.
cool story. So I loved it. Yeah, it was very well done. And I'm excited to read the next one. So, and then
Normally,
oh, sorry, good.
I think that of course you can find it in French, but I don't know exactly the date of release of the second one in English. So I'm sorry, I can't help you.
Oh, digitally they have it already, but I don't
Okay.
know if they have the hardback. So I ended up buying the
Okay.
digital one only because I already had the French hardback.
Yeah.
So I bought the digital one for 1 and 2. But yeah, I got to find a way to buy more French comics, but they're like it's hard because they're like shipping from France. So I don't know. I got to figure
Yeah.
something
Can imagine.
out. I got to take another trip. So that's what I got to do. But you talked about your schedule, how busy it gets. How like what does your schedule look like working full time in art? Like how busy is it?
Um, the deadlines are really long, as I said. So normally I have a wall here for making the book complete with cover art and some other illustrations. Or, for example, with a special edition, I have to do some other stuff to put inside original drawings. So the schedule is really full, and I have to add also a lot of invitations for signing sessions in bookstores, or for example for signing sessions in festivals. And there's really a lot of festivals. I try to find the right balance, because if I always travel, I don't have time to work on pages, of course. And sometimes it happens also that I collaborate with some others companies, small project illustrations, or I don't know, with the for example, it happened to me to work on the key art of a video game, or some sketches to be animated for the trailers of the video game. But for the moment, I'm not allowed to to talk about it. Always
Yeah.
secret.
Yeah, for sure.
Or
So then
for example, I collaborate frequently with the newspaper Le Figaro, which is a lot known in France. on illustration projects as drawing historical characters on a dictionary, something like that.
And then do you work, so I know you have a year for the Redbeard books. Are you working on like multiple different comics like throughout the year, or do you just kind of focus on that one?
It's really hard because working on Redbeard takes a lot of time, because doing almost everything by hand, it asks for a long time, both on page and covers and illustration. So it's really hard to add other projects, other comics project, while respecting deadlines. For example, I participated to the collective Western series because it was like 9 pages. So it was something really short that I could schedule easily inside the year. But otherwise, it's really hard to add another project of comics, and I often have to refuse some really important proposition, but I can't. I prefer to focus on quality and give the best on Barbe Rouge, and probably in the future, if I take some rhythm and I can add something else, but for the moment it's really hard. For example, I'm trying to set up a big project for the French market with one of the most famous screenwriters in France, and I'm really happy about it. And it's a project that I care really a lot, because the story and characters are mine. It's my idea. So we are
Awesome.
developing like a bit forense, but I can't say anything else for the moment. But
I
I'm
understand.
sure that it will be really a long time before something appears, because there's a lot of work, especially when you have to create a new universe, new characters, and without stopping with working on Redbeard. So at the moment, I'm at the beginning of the 4th volume, whose story is split in half and will end in the 5th one. But the idea is anyway to continue with the 6th one and so on. So long life to Redbeard, but of course I need time to make him alive.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And then so you mentioned that you're doing it by hand. So you're drawing it on paper, and then do you just like deliver the paper to them for them to scan in, or do they have you like put it in
No, I have a scan. I work on. I can show you if you want.
Sure, yeah, I'd love to see it. Yeah.
This is
Oh,
an
wow.
original page, so I work on a very big size.
Yeah.
And I have a scan, which is a A3 size. So actually, this is a double A3. So I scan in multiple parts, and then I match with Photoshop, and I send them directly the scan. Sometimes I prefer to send them to send to the publisher the originals, especially with colors, because if you want to have the best quality on a scan of with colors, is really hard. And I have a mid-professional scanner, but of course when you have to treat colors is really hard, and the scanner that the publisher has is totally different. So for example, for the covers, I'm used to send them the original and I let them scan, and sometimes I do some retouch after on the digital version, but the scan I let to them to do, because it's more difficult.
Yeah. So then the colors that you're doing that in like Photoshop versus like painting it or on the page, right?
Yeah, exactly. For the pages, I almost use Photoshop. Yeah,
Okay. That
with
makes sense.
a tablet, so it's like working on paper. It's just quicker.
Yeah.
It's just another kind of work, but it's pretty the same process I do hand by hand.
Yeah, there was someone who I worked with, and he was showing me like the live you know, how he would like do the stuff in Photoshop, and it was crazy, like all the different brush styles he had to choose. And it's a lot involved. It's not just like taking a, you know, to the tablet. It's like you really are using like the artist, like that tapestry to do all the different stuff. It was really cool. So
yeah, sometimes people think that when the artists say I work digitally, I color digitally, I don't know, you tap something on the keyboard and with magic the colors are done. No, it doesn't work like that.
No, yeah, and also if you have to adjust anything, like I was talking to an artist at a show, and he was like, yeah, he's like, I know how to paint, but he's like, if I have to change anything, he's like, correcting paint like on there or marker or whatever, he's like, it takes forever. Whereas digitally, I can
Yeah,
do it so fast, which is better for everybody.
yeah,
So
that's the most important thing, is that you can really go quicker, a lot quicker. You can correct uh, you can correct 10 times and nothing happens. If you do that on paper at a certain time, paper
yeah,
sadly you please stop.
yeah. It's just there's a hole
Yeah,
in
exactly.
the paper. Oh man. Well, before we wrap up, I was going to ask, are there any, I know you had talked about you have a project in the future that's, you know, very early on. I know you probably can't share much, but is there anything you can share about any of the future stuff you have going on?
Not really, because
Yeah.
no, no, it's always like that. All is completely secret, and it's
Yeah.
always delicate. But no, I think certainly I will go on with Redbeard, of course, and I have just to schedule a bit the next books to allow to build something else, because I need to do something else. This doesn't mean that I want to stop with Redbeard, but since there are characters that aren't mine, so I didn't create them. I'm just drawing them. I need to do something else which is more personal. You know, I really need it as an artist.
Yeah, I totally understand that. There's an artist I worked with, and he's working on his own characters. He wants to be able to
Yeah,
have that
yeah.
artistic expression. And as somebody who creates my own characters, I totally understand. So yeah, I'll be the first in line. You better message me when your stuff comes out, because I don't care if I have to import it. I will be the first in line. I want the thick special
Thank
edition.
you.
Maybe I'll come down and have you sign it in person, because I loved France.
Surely.
The area we were in was cool, so I would love to go back. So awesome. Well, thank you again for joining me. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing all this information about French
It was
comics. And
really, really, really a big pleasure. Thanks a
yeah,
lot. I apologize for my English because I know it's not perfect at all. I hope you could understand all I said, of course.
no, I could understand everything. And one thing about Americans is that someone with an accent speaking English, we like respect more than someone who can speak proper English. So it works out better. It's just a weird thing we have. So we love accents here. So love it. But yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you being on. And hopefully, maybe down the road, we can do another one when you've got, you know, when I've read more of Redbeard and I have some more questions for you. So. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you.